Welcome back, y'all. So let's continue this video.
And evidence that is shown that we, so-called African American, are truly the Aboriginal of this land, with all the evidence surrounding it, all the evidence, because there is no substantiating evidence to prove that we come from Africa. I've been to Virginia, where the 1619, I've already debunked that. There was no 29 Negroes brought to Virginia, or 29 Africans brought to Virginia in 1619. There wasn't one. Again, you could go check out my first videos where it clearly states that that was a lie. 1619, 29 Negroes coming to Virginia. There wasn't none. He had Taino and Chino, not Chino, scratch that. He had Taino and I forgot the other Indian. I forgot the name. Taino and Arawak. I don't know why it slipped my mind, but anyway, Taino and Arawak Indians were brought to Virginia, and that's it from the West Indies because that's where the treasurer and the white lion was coming from. Ever went to Africa? They never had. There was never a Portuguese vessel. I already debunked that. That is over. There was no Portuguese vessel called the galleon, the galleon or whatever you want to call it. Wasn't never one. The boat was built in 1530 and dismantled in 1551. If you go check out my other video, it will give you all the details to how that never happened. There was no transatlantic slave trade. I done said this in previous videos.
I'm glad you said that, because I try to tell people, such thing as a land slave trade, such thing. It never existed. It never existed. So all that false African American bullshit, it's a lie. Because Jackson made the word of African American. It's a false word. He made that up in 1988. It's a false word. Some things black. Black is a false word. Black means non-existent. They're telling me you don't exist. Y'all got to wake up, people.
And I see some people who are saying the same thing now. I'm saying, I don't care if you take what I say. I'd rather this information get out. So I don't care who say it. I don't need credit. I don't care. I like truth over me getting any type of recognition. I don't care. Just make sure you say it right. Like if you want to say it and repeat what I say, repeat it verbatim. I'm not going to come after you for repeating it. The information needs to come out, and that's all I care about. I really don't care about recognition. If you're a content creator, you watch what I put out, you say it verbatim, please, so I can be watching it and see it and be like, yes, thank you. Okay, I'm not gonna hate on you, baby. I want more people to learn the truth. Anyway, back to what I was saying. There's too much ocular proof. There are maps, world maps, that clearly states that America was India. There are and had Paris and other different.
Right. Now that brought me to this. It's two Indias. East India is Hindustan. The East Indies was Hindustan. The second India was called the West Indies. The Caribbean, Haiti, Jamaica, Virgin Islands, South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, Mississippi, Tennessee, and all the rest of the 50 states of the United States belongs to the West Indies. And South America and Mexico, all that belongs to the West Indies. South America, Mexico, and the rest of the 50 states of the United States belong to the West Indies. That's the second India. All right, let's continue.
Now what we call different countries confined within it, and you saw it from the Louisiana Purchase map. We have to stop the BS now, because I feel like we're allowing they're trying to come up. We're not African. That's the African story. We done beat that out. I don't anybody telling that African shit. You're just trying to force the narrative because you don't like the truth. We ain't African. The so-called African American, we are not African in no way, shape, or form. That's why there's no manifest, there's no ledgers, there's nothing but hearsay and conjecture. There's nothing. That's why they don't have no votes, no nothing. That's why there's nothing there. There's no manifest, there's no ledgers, there's no maps. And again, I always say this, and I say this, and I say this, and I hear other content creators saying this. It's not virtually possible for you to have slaves strapped to a ship and sailing over the Atlantic Ocean. It is like a bowl of cereal. Do you understand? If you put that freezing cold ice of milk and then pour them damn cereal in it, it's going to freeze the cereal. We already know this. So you have to understand a wooden vessel that is uninsulated. And this, you're talking about in the early 1600s, when we did not have installation. These boats had no insulation, nothing. They had seaports where water can get in for oxygen and circulation. Otherwise, those people would then suffocate if they're at the bottom of the boat, strapped together, laying down. There's too many biological things that would happen to the human body, and I was a nurse, worked in a hospital, to let you know that that's not virtually possible. I said this, and I think another content creator, he repeated what I said. Say it right, baby. The reason why is because of atrophy. Yes. Not only atrophy, but the cubitus ulcers that can develop in the skin from the chains rubbing up against your skin constantly when a boat is being tossed to and fro. Not to mention you're laying on your back on a wooden vessel, and you have to understand you're laying there all day, and you're laying there for almost a year, because that's how long it took to navigate from so-called Africa to the Americas. Do you understand me? So you got somebody for almost a year laying on their back. That person would have to be you know how long it takes for the human body. We can Google it. Y'all watching my screen. We could Google it. How long does it take for the human body to atrophy? Okay, the microphone is unavailable. Okay. How long does it, okay, they want me to basically just type it in. And we're gonna show you just based off the basic biology of the human body. 2 to 3 weeks of not using your muscles. So 2 to 3 weeks now. Y'all see what I'm seeing? We look at the same screen. 2 to 3 weeks now. You telling me you had slaves laying butt naked on, and we all know that the Atlantic Ocean with their ocean gyres, thank you, Dane Calloway, for the ocean gyres, which makes your boat literally go in a fucking circle if you get caught in it, which is in the Atlantic Ocean, right? So we got the ocean gyres, we got the current, the Atlantic Ocean is one of the rockiest seas, right? It's very unstable. We understand the Atlantic Ocean to be very treacherous. If you see any of the...
Okay, I'm glad you said that, right? 80% of Atlantic Ocean never been discovered. 80% of Atlantic Ocean never been discovered.
Conquistadors and any explorers, they tell you how bad the Atlantic Ocean gets when navigating sea, especially since they did not have sonar, they didn't have GPS, they used compass and hands. They use they use a compass and hand signals and gestures and a map to navigate the ocean seas. They didn't have any other way. And wind sails. So these people are navigating with people at the bottom of their ship, stuck at the bottom of the ship, of freezing below zero weather now, below zero. Everybody on board would freeze to death. Everybody, you said these people were butt naked. Nobody said they gave them blankets, had heat and nothing. So these people would freeze to death, especially if they're coming from the continent of Africa. They would freeze. You ain't doing it. We can't do it today. You take a metal boat today, those ships, those big ships that we take out, and you cut the fucking power. Everybody on board will freeze to death. We know. We saw the Titanic. We saw every other wreckage when you have to hurry up our boat when they get stuck in the middle of the ocean. You see what can transpire if these people are navigating without power, without feasible and adequate insulation. So we know it's not virtually possible for you to take no slave enslaved from Africa to the Americas in that time frame. No matter if you had, and it was like, oh well, they had little boats. Okay, little boats that aren't attached to your boat, which can also get caught in the same ocean gyre, which can force it to navigate the opposite direction of your boat. So how did you keep those small vessels following your vessels in an unstable water, in unstable waters? Make that make sense. We heard about what happened to Christopher Columbus when he had the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. What the Pinta caught on fire, and they had to rescue all those people off the boat. Again, it's bullshit. It's not. There's no truth in it, right? There's no truth in it. There's nothing that you could substantiate in the transatlantic slave trade narrative. There's nothing. That's why there's no corroborating evidence. See, truth is truth in all things that correlates to itself. It'll keep telling us when it's truth, it'll keep progressing. The story will keep progressing until it has an overall end. When it's a lie, it'll keep repeating itself. There'll never be no new evidence. It'll just keep repeating itself over and over and telling you new lies. And if there is any new evidence, it's evidence that cannot be substantiated and backed by any ocular proof, any documented proof, which is the whole slave narrative in itself. There is absolutely no substantiating evidence to prove the transatlantic slave trade ever existed the way they say it did. Not that it didn't exist. I said the way they say it happened. There were no African slaves ever brought to America. Every dark hue of complexion person that you've seen in America from 1400s that was documented from Christopher Columbus and Hernandez de Soto and every other person that's seen these dark hues of complexions all throughout the Americas, these people were the original inhabitants of America. You're not to be confused with your Hindustan, Chino slaves, and your Negritos. Those people came in the 1600s, and I don't stress that enough. Those Hindustan, Chinese, Mongols, Filipinos, Vietnamese, Japanese, Korean, people who came over, who are now parading around as Native American, Siberians. These people came, well, the Siberians could have came in the latter of the 1400s, but we were already here prior to any Siberian who claimed to be an Eskimo. We were here before them. We were here before the Chino slaves who now call themselves, who are now federally recognized as being Native American. We were here. You want to know how you know we were here? Because every early depiction shows it. No Mexican was here. These so-called European Mexicans with the pale hue and the chinky and the Mongol phenotype, they were not here. They are not of this land. They are Chino slaves. And the truth of the matter is that's a fact. They are not the Olmecs. They are not the Mayans. That's why when you go to the Bonaparte sculptures, them Mexicans don't wear dreads. Why? If
Nope.
you were the people.
Hold on, I gotta charge my phone up. So just give me a minute here. Just give me a minute. Gotta charge it up real quick. Alright, I'm sorry.
Well, then why you stop doing certain things? You don't wear hair wraps. You don't wear dreads. Why did you stop doing these things? You the Olmecs. I know of people who still do those things to this day. To this day, they do it. And they get discriminated when their kids go to school with dreads in their hair. They get discriminated against, right? They get discriminated against. People try to down you when you walk around with a wrap on your head. Why do they discriminate against us when we wear wraps on our heads? Because they know that you stepping into a history you don't even know that belongs to you. Your people been wearing dreads. Your people been wearing wraps. We've been doing it. We don't even know that our body, we don't even know that we are literally doing everything as our ancestors has done it. We've been doing the gold chains. We've been rocking the necklace and the banger earrings and the hoops. We don't even know why we like that so much, because that is what our ancestors did. We don't even know why we like it. We don't even understand that that is biological, like that is remembering. That's remembering. I don't even know what to call it. It's I'm trying to think. It's like hereditary biological instinct from past generations of doing it. We've been getting the gold teeth and the jewels in the mouth. This ain't new. We are the Mayans. There are documented actual photos. Let me pull y'all up the photos. There are actual photos that Researcher TV got of the Mayans who were working on a plantation. And look at this crayon from back in the day. This crayon said Indian red. Indian red is my hue of complexion. It is a brown hue of complexion like myself. And people was like, oh, well, everybody was dark back in the day. Well, I digress. People were dark back in the day, but these depictions that's in Europe clearly show you that this woman right here is not a Mongol woman. She's clearly an American Indian. She is not a Mongol. Under no circumstance is she Mongol or Mongol phenotype. She's not Hindustan. You cannot mistake her for a Hindu man or woman. You cannot mistake her for a Mongol or a Mexican European, or even the dark-skinned Mexicans that they keep trying to say are Mexicans but are Chino slaves who could not just. Those dark-skinned Mexicans that you see over there in Mexico are not even an Olmec neither. They're just Chino slaves who are not allowed to call themselves Mexican due to their hue of complexion, because they created a racial hierarchy so that the original inhabitants can no longer have the land in Mexico no more. Just like they did here in America, because that's what they did in America. They created a racial hierarchy so that these Native Americans, because they say, y'all say these Native Americans be saying that they us. Oh, can I explain? How do I go from my phenotype of what you consider an African phenotype to a Mongol phenotype, just changing the hue of complexion, you moron? It's not possible. Do you understand how your ancestors and my ancestors cannot be the same people? I am not a Mongol woman, nor do I look Mongol. Do you understand me? And if the Racial Integrity Act of 1924 clearly tells you that we will no longer cast these people as Indian, but as Negro, color, and Black. So then they're saying that I was Indian at first, but they will no longer call me that anymore. So how can I have a Mongol grandma? Think about that. My grandma not gonna go from being a Mongol to looking like me. It just ain't no fucking way. And we can't be descendants of slaves. I said this in a previous video, because slave is a word, it's a Slavic word. It was created by the Germans to talk about the Slavs. We can never be descendants of Slavs, because we are not Slavic people. I am not a Slav. I'm not from Turkestan, Russia, none of that. I'm not from any of those, so I can't be a slave. So stop calling me descendants of a slave, because that don't even make sense. Because slaves, that means Slav. That's the same thing. I'm not a Slav, so stop calling me descendants of a slave. I'm not African. We don't have any African ancestry. Again, there is no ocular proof. There is no data to back any of that information up. There's nothing that substantiates these claims that have been made upon us. And since America is so good at making up false claims, proves us we African. These movies that you're making, Catilda, that's conjecture. Okay, that's folklore. That's storytelling. That's not proof. Anybody can make a story. Show evidence such as documents, birth certificates, birth certificates, manifest ledgers where everybody's parents' names, dates, added like something, or not address, but names, dates, when they got here. Y'all don't got none of that. I've been to all the archives, Washington, D.C., Virginia, even in South Carolina. I've been there. There is nothing there. There's no manifest. And the manifest that they got, it just gives numbers. They give both names and numbers. That is not a manifest. Anybody could have been those slaves. And then, as a matter of fact, if you look at the Virginia Company article from Virginia, it literally says they were bringing slaves to Africa, not from Africa. Let's get into it. Let's get into it, because we gotta dispel this stuff. I'm so tired of hearing people call me an African American or Black.
So what I'm going to do, I'm doing part 2. So let me end this live, and I'll do part 2. All right.